The story opens in the middle of an illusionist show. An audience stares at Bixby, a submerged and chained illusionist. The main character, an unnamed psychology student, scrawls on a notepad. On stage, the illusionist, Bixby, escapes his chains and begins to exit the stage. While crossing the stage, he stops and stares at two agents situated in the back. Bixby then exits the stage entirely. Later that same day, the student catches up to Bixby, eager to tell him about the psych paper he's writing about him. However, Bixby stares past him at two agents. Without hesitating, Bixby takes off, sprinting with the agents behind him. The student chases after the agents, excited about adding this to his psych paper. With the student in close pursuit, Bixby and the agents turn to a corner. As the student turns the same corner, he's met by a brick wall. In the background, we see a cigarette advertisement with "Dream Sticks, taste the freedom" printed on it. The next night, the student is again backstage with Bixby. As Bixby is getting ready, the student asks him about the agents, asking if he is having a problem with the IRS. Bixby finds this funny and cracks a joke. Bixby then turns to the student. The student thinks, "This was the first time I felt he even saw me, the first time I think I became real to him." Bixby asks, "Why do you think that people don't feel free?" The student answers, "This'll sound dumb, but I think it's because despite what we're told, we're really not." The student describes the cigarette ad he saw the previous day, remarking that the advert said, "Feel free, but it's really addictive." Bixby asks the student, "You want to know how I do what I do?" and hands him a card reading, "Bixby, the incredible liberationist for hire." Bixby takes this time to mention the Matrix and asks the student if he's heard the name Morpheus. The student asks if Morpheus is also an illusionist. Bixby answers that no, he's not a performer. It then cuts to the beginning of the show, showing the agents next to the exit sign. Bixby is chained and being lowered into the tank of water. The student is also in the audience, musing on how many answers he wants. All of a sudden, the crowd is on their feet and shouting. Bixby had disappeared. The agents are on stage, guns drawn, staring at the tank. The agents take the student into custody and ask him questions. The student answers them, answering truthfully, telling the agents everything Bixby had told him. They let him go after 2 hours. Outside, the student looks at the card that Bixby gave him. It now reads, "The Matrix has you," on top of the original message. It ends with the student, "What is the Matrix? Morpheus will know." A stockbroker was married to a woman whose mind was unusually sensitive. Extraordinarily, her sensitive mind was also able to receive premonitions of what was to come, or, in actuality, perceive the deja vus permeating the Matrix. She was also able to self-substantiate during her sleep, witnessing her body being paralysed in a pod surrounded by the machines, and mistaking it for a nightmare. During one such attempt to lighten the situation, the husband chose to talk about his work, and about how his colleague Butterfield had heard rumours of a new wonder drug by the pharmaceutical company Pfizer. Upon hearing this, the wife immediately confirmed the rumours of the pill's upcoming release, and further confirmed how sensational the new drug, Amortin, was going to be. The stockbroker, in a risky move, decided to invest every dollar they could afford into Pfizer stocks, nervously watching the market for the next 2 weeks. His wife's intuition proved to be keen, however, and the investment immediately paid off. Not long after, while the couple were out shopping, the stockbroker's wife suddenly perceived that a vehicle was bound to crash into the store they were currently in. Acting quickly, she prevented the accident from claiming many lives. This deed, however, did not go unnoticed by the media, and the woman soon appeared on a TV interview. Then, revealing why she even agreed to the interview in the first place, she warned San Francisco of an upcoming earthquake. With her advice, she was able to prevent the devastation that the natural disaster would have caused. But this disclosure of her abilities had marked the beginning of the couple's troubles. Following a deja vu which the couple had both experienced, and believing they were beginning to detect and uncover some underlying structure to the world, the couple were suddenly pitted against an ever-growing list of problems. And as if being forced from directing their focus towards the truth, they were instead stalled into place by her pregnancy, then by a barrage of lawsuits and investigations, and even by the infestation of pests in their home. Mysteriously, the deja vus also suddenly stopped. As such, through time, the couple were eventually completely sidetracked back into normal cycles within the Matrix, and were confined into the insurmountable struggles they had both been forced to ceaselessly cope with. While climbing Mount Everest, Freya Canning discovers the withered corpse of a fellow climber, a Japanese man whose body she believes has remained uncovered since at least the previous season. Freya, acknowledging the difficulty of retrieving the dead bodies of any climber at her current altitude, offers the man a quick prayer before leaving it to continue with her own ascent. A short 15 minutes later, Freya herself faces possible death after falling 100 feet down into a cavern. Her body broken, Freya starts entertaining her own death in the mountain and recalls hearing how other climbers, after dying in similar crevices, had their bodies eventually chewed up by the ice and later churned out somewhere in the mountain. She recalls how she started writing an artificial intelligence program called Self, and then realizes how she quite likes the idea of the mountain churning her up. While visualizing her own death, Freya then spots a man in a black suit and dark glasses walking through the ice and approaching her. The man introduces himself to be Agent John Fine and helps Freya to stand up on her own. The seemingly recovered Freya is apparently admired by Agent Fine and his colleagues because of her AI work. Agent Fine then offers to get Freya out of the crevasse. A doubtful Freya initially declines this offer, which made Agent Fine take a step away from Freya, causing Freya to immediately fall back down to the ground and suffer pain. Agent Fine explains that he only wanted Freya to complete the AI program, something she would have done in case she lived anyway, and even offered to pay Freya handsomely for the program. Freya then accepts. Upon acceptance of the deal, Freya is instantly transported back to the surface of the mountain with her body intact. Dismissing the whole experience as a product of hypoxia, Freya continues on and eventually reaches the summit the next day. Back home in New York, Freya is in front of her computer screen, no longer able to continue the work on the new AI program, due to what Freya suspects is an association between the program and the upsetting memories of Mount Everest. Still believing the entire experience to be hypoxia, Freya decides to set the completion of the program aside. Agent Fine knocks on Freya's door 2 days later, asking about the AI program. Freya, at first unable to recognise the man, suddenly remembers the entire experience at Mount Everest, after Agent Fine introduces himself as the man in the mountain. He reminds her of the deal. Freya admits to Agent Fine that she can no longer complete the program due to the program's strong associations which Freya avoided talking about. Agent Fine, asking if Freya was referring to the ice, suddenly starts to crystallize and speedily generates so much ice from his body that the ice quickly proceeds to envelop and tighten around Freya until it kills her. In a morgue, the coroner and his assistant discover that Freya suffered broken bones which were consistent with a fall, but were puzzled because the lack of anywhere she could have fallen from. The coroner also concludes, after looking out the window and pausing to see the sun and the sky in a perfect July day, that Freya died of hypothermia. A narrator describes how Zion and other Red Pills are part of the rebellion against the machines, and expresses how they're only doing this out of boredom, but we don't know what this is. We see a bank in Mexico and a prominent Red Pill woman carrying a gun. She steals some money and describes how she's done this many times before. Then agents in an attack helicopter find her and go after her. Acknowledging how her plan is reckless, she's adamant that this simulation is better than her boring real life in Zion. She calls her operator for an exit and leaves the simulation. We learn that she is called Phoebe. Her crewmates are surprised at how close this occasion was, citing how other simulations weren't as dangerous. Even so, they load up a new simulation entitled Spaghetti Western and send themselves into it. Phoebe feels the new information about people, emotions, places and skills wash through her brain. Her narration continues to express how much she hates the real world, naming the Oracle's brainwashing, and how much she resents waiting for the One to appear. She also explains how she and her crew stole this ship. In this simulation, she shoots an agent. In real life, her ship is attacked. It's revealed that it was a different Zion ship that attacked them. The story ends with Phoebe claiming that she's dead. Pete is a security guard. He had longed to become a police officer since he was a child, a dream owed to the police saving his family from a home invasion years ago, a crime that resulted in the death of his father when he was only 5 years old. One evening at work, Pete brought with him the academy application papers he was struggling to fill out. The forms were then noticed by his fellow security guard Charlie, a former cop of 28 years, who annoyingly expressed disapproval at Pete's repeated application attempts. Charlie tried to advise Pete not to waste his life away on trying to serve and protect, rebuking how his life wasn't worth the sacrifice, and then further remarking that security work was where policemen were supposed to end up, not where they start. Failing to pay any attention at all to the security feeds during their discussion, however, the two security guards were then caught off guard by a sudden explosion near the building entrance as an unknown Red Pill breaks into the building using an incendiary bomb. Pete and Charlie, whose security stations were only a short distance away, then observed the mysterious Red Pill emerge from the flames before he leapt several meters up into the air, travelling past the two security guards, and landing well inside the building and running off. Confused by the incredible display they just saw, Pete immediately turns to Charlie to ask his opinion, only to witness Charlie being possessed by an agent. The agent, materialising almost instantly, then ignores Pete and immediately sprints after the Red Pill. Pete was unable to move for a while, trying to convince himself that he and Charlie must have been drugged or trying to think of some similar explanation. Eventually though, Pete decided to grab the shotgun locked under his desk and, after equipping his sidearm, gave careful chase, after which he then caught up to the two intruders, now too engaged in a gunfight to even notice Pete. He pointed his sidearm at the Red Pill and ordered him to stop, carefully positioning himself in between the two men and then pointing his shotgun held by his other arm at the agent. The agent attempted to assert authority over Pete, stating his jurisdiction and asking Pete to stand aside as he kills the Red Pill. But unconvinced, and wanting to take control of the situation, Pete instead chose to order both men to put down their weapons. Ultimately, both men were not happy with Pete's interference. Still staring at each other, they chose to simply ignore Pete, who suddenly and painfully realises what is about to happen. The Red Pill and the agent both raised their firearms at Pete. Back in the real world, a Docbot could be seen overseeing Pete's disconnection from his pod. His limp body, after being severed from the plugs and cables of the power plant, was then flushed into the liquefaction facilities. Emma Pearson is a young girl speaking to a therapist, Dr. Avery. She explains that after her last birthday, she saw a woman running next to her Uncle Mac and that he changed into a shadow, in her words. After that, she came to believe that nothing she sees is real, and she can see reality only by closing her eyes. Also, she plucked wires on the head of her doll, Charlie, since she believes this is how he looks with her eyes closed. Furthermore, she didn't like the bathtub anymore because, when submerged, she could forget how to get out because the shadows don't want her to. Her mother visited Dr. Avery, who heard about her hallucinations and diagnosed her with Corona syndrome. Dr. Avery then suggests a colleague to her named Dr. Frey. Next week, she explains the situation to Dr. Frey. When he asks her if she's heard of something called the Matrix, she stares at him wondering. Frey suggests that she should enter a clinic. The next day, she has her first full sleep after months. As her mother brings her to the therapist's office, instead of Dr. Frey, two men, Mr. Finn and Mr. Jones, whom she recognises as shadows, come to her to take her to a clinic. Saga is considered by many to be a bit of a troublemaker, and would often not respect her unique abilities to bend the rules of the Matrix. She prefers the real world to the illusion that the Matrix provided, and is frustrated by her many hours of study and meditation under the supervision of the Oracle. One night, she contacts an operator and explains her frustrations. The operator does not know how she got the number and says that she should not have called at all. But before they can end the conversation, a trace lock is implemented and the operator tells Saga to run. Just after the operator hangs up the phone, 3 agents appear at the door of the telephone booth that Saga is in. They instruct her to come with them, but Saga ducks out of the phone booth and runs across the city, the agents close behind her. During their pursuit, an agent takes control of a truck and tries to run Saga over with it. She narrowly avoids the collision by arching her back so that the truck could pass over her, however her bracelet catches on the truck. The truck turns into an alleyway and, before it flips over, Saga rolls away from the resulting explosion. The agents corner her in the alleyway and nearly catch her before she goes inside a hole that the truck opened up on the side of the building. The building, which was an abandoned shop, contains a telephone that Saga uses to escape the agents. On her mobile phone to the operator, Link, and with agents all around, Kay demands an exit. The only one available is just in front of her, Brownstone 333 first floor, but appears to be unstable. Even so, Kay says it will work and Link patches the call through. Inside, a Blue Pill City lineman has finished checking the phone, which seems to be in full working order. Kay kicks the door down and tells him the call is for her. Link warns her that something's changed, but as Kay tries to pick up the phone to exit, an agent appears in the doorway and the corridor. The corridor, rigged with explosives, explodes from just behind him. Knocked to the floor and dazed by the explosion, the lineman hears his mobile phone ring and he answers it. Kay tells him that the call is for her again, holding her gun to make the point, and in case he changes into an agent. Link tells her that the situation doesn't look good, with agents moving all around her and the last exit completely destroyed. Kay asks Link if he could re-establish an exit if she gets the phone working again, and as he confirms it, she tells the lineman to patch her back inside the phone line. The lineman says he can do it, but it might be quicker without the gun, and tells Kay that he's not a threat and that he couldn't hurt her even if he wanted to. He connects his handset, and as Link places the call, it rings and Kay drops the mobile phone as the lineman passes her the handset. But just as she is about to take it, the lineman becomes an agent, who shoots Kay before she can react. Regaining his senses, the lineman wonders if he was shot and what happened to Kay. His head pounding, he looks up and sees her lying on the floor, propped up against the wall, shot through the eye. Disbelieving the whole thing, he wonders if he did it. He tells himself that it's just not possible, and the handset keeps ringing in the background with the call that would have been Kay's safe exit. Resistance operative Maggie is sent to the Digi-Caribbean by the Oracle with the crew of the Callipyge to scout for potentials. Maggie's twin daughters, Lisa and Ashley, stayed in the real world on board a different ship to take part in some training. However, they planned to visit their mother in the Matrix as a surprise for her birthday. The twins are able to do this by closely examining an operator over many occasions and learning which buttons they press on the big Matrix control computer. Lisa manages to jack into the Matrix to meet Maggie. However, unknown Unknown to the twins, the trace also gave away the location of Maggie's hovercraft to some nearby sentinels. The Callipyde is attacked, killing Maggie's crewmates, leaving Maggie all alone with Lisa in the Digi-Caribbean. Maggie quickly works out what had happened and realises that she is about to die. Before she is killed, she gives her daughter a shell necklace and tells Lisa that she loves both her and Ashley, not mentioning that it was them who would be responsible for her death. After witnessing his parents die as they were freed from the Matrix the week before, Hitch, a Red Pill operative, makes a deal with the machines. He attacks and kills his entire team while in the Matrix, and an agent smashes in through the window, shooting him in the leg and confirming their deal, saying that their section of the Matrix has been scrambled, all to prevent the Resistance from working out what really happened. The agent leaves after throwing him a mobile phone, and Hitch calls the operator, who wants to know what went on, demanding an exit. Back in Zion, Hitch talks to a captain who has read the report on the death of his parents. The captain explains that many of those lost were trained directly under him, but that the losses must strengthen Zion, and says that while they don't know who attacked the team, the Merovingian was believed to be involved. While saying that he knows the captain's position on the war, and that he wants to destroy the machines in revenge, Hitch deploys a small bug-like bomb, which crawls up underneath the underside of the captain's desk. He quotes the captain, saying, "Anything is better than our slowly dying under a pretense of peace. This is simply another form of slavery. We must mercifully end the blind suffering. We must destroy the Matrix." He confirms that he believes the words, and the captain tells him to recover, as there will be much to do in the coming weeks. So here, Hitch is basically convincing the captain that he wants to work with the captain to secretly end the truce and reignite the war. Hitch thanks him, saying that he is ready, but as he walks away he presses a button, detonating the bomb and killing the captain in the ensuing explosion. The whole thing he said about joining the captain was just lies. Back in the Matrix later, Hitch stands, chairing a meeting of a large financial company in a skyscraper boardroom. After the others have left, one man in a suit wearing dark glasses remains behind, and says that his help in this recent Accord setback has been much appreciated, and that he hopes his reinsertion has been agreeable. Hitch expresses his wish never to have to kill again, and asks if the war is starting again, to which the agent replies that such distinctions are purely human. The machines only want survival and will continue to strive for it. This sudden realization makes Hitch call his wife. He says he's cancelled their dinner and has booked a flight for that night, calling it an early midnight crisis. He says, "There's no telling what will happen tomorrow, but today we are blessed with a world of opportunities. Tonight we will start exploring them." As we see him back in his pod, still on the phone in the Matrix, he replies to her, "Yes, I love you too." Michael Karl Popper is in the middle of a training mission with Morpheus overseeing. Michael gets overcome by agents and fails, to Morpheus's dismay. Michael complains that Neo is dead and therefore can't encourage him like before, but then the RSIs of Neo, Trinity and Seraph appear in the simulation to help him. Michael retries the simulation, but this time with his skateboard, a key item that helped him escape the agents before. The agents attack even harder, with a version of the Pale Twins attacking too. Michael evades them and defeats them. Thank you for watching that, everybody. If it was a help to you and you really liked learning about the Matrix lore, then please subscribe to Jam Punch and I'll be releasing a brand new Matrix Explained video every single week. My name is George, this is Jam Punch, and I'll see you next time.